Hello and welcome everybody to Around the Battleground. My name is LHS and I'm your host. And today we unveil finally we unveil our replacement for J-Mac, who was our replacement for Gore Miser, who was our replacement for Freight Train. It's been a long list, long list of accolades, really. I mean, Freight Train, Gore Miser. So if this is any indication, you're set to do great things. We've got Culture. Culture, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit?
Hey, howdy, hey, folks. My name's Culture Gibson. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a caster first. My passion has always been esports since 2012, really. And I just started Smite recently, but I've been in MOBAs for a long time now. This is my second year casting. I've been doing Smite Prime. So if you watch a lot of that, you've seen me or at least heard my voice as a play-by-play. And I mean, I'm just excited to follow this season. I've been able to finally follow a season from start to finish, catching games, and the competition is hype. Smite is such a fun, volatile game to watch, and the fact that it's action nearly all the time, unlike League of Legends, where I come from, where it can be kind of slow and it's more finesse. It's like a bunch of Brits with tea sitting around just holding on with class. Smite's like, nah, we're just gonna be true Americans and break out the bats and smash everything until we get to a victor decided. So I'm just happy to be on the show with you too, man. I've heard a lot about this show. I've been really itching to get on, but things in these past weeks have caused me to miss episodes. But now I'm finally here. The wait is over.
The wait is over. It was getting rough, man. Carrying the show by myself. Like, I did it. I can talk. If there's one thing I can do, it's talk. But some of these days were pretty dry with 3 O's and no drama happening. You picked a good day to come on for your first show. We got a lot to talk about, and I don't want to waste a lot of time because we do have some time constraints. But I'm happy to have you. I'm really excited to have that different point of view kind of coming in. My background going into Smite is I started in Dota, not very high level or anything, but it was the game that introduced me to MOBAs and what I really got into. And so I bring kind of that. There's certain things that are like essential to the different MOBAs. Like if you condense Dota into one thing, it's if everything's OP, nothing's OP. And that's kind of what I bring in my mindset to Smite, right? I want everything. I want there to be so many item interactions. I want there to be a bunch of cool stuff. And I want it all to be really strong. Like that is my perfect vision for Smite.
You know what? I tried to hop into Dota once, and besides what you say, everything's OP, then nothing's OP. That's some big brain stuff. When I found out you could even just kill the courier and delay items, I was like, okay, this is getting to the very specific details. It's like the levels, to my mind, as far as least to most complicated, is Smite, then League, and then Dota. So I already tell you're a big brain guy. Yeah, I'm gonna have a lot of trouble keeping up, but I'm gonna do my best.
That's what brought me into the analytics side of Smite. I can't play the game for shit, but I can think about it real well. Me don't play good, me think good. All right, so we've done enough of the intro. We're gonna focus as always. We're gonna focus on the minor league stuff. This week we NA kind of largely stayed the same. We saw some roster changes. We saw Benny Q out, and we saw Diesel come in. And we've seen Cope kind of switch to solo, and a lot of different changes coming on the NA side. EU still the same. However, at the beginning of the year, we kind of talked about with J-Mac and I talked about that Simplicity needed to find the wins. They needed to get the spark going. They were kind of in that do or die. They were going to be in that do or die situation. And Out Cold, if they lost one more game, they were done. Out Cold proceeded to not win more games. Simplicity, though, has started to look really good. I don't know what it is about the squad, but they have really kicked it into another gear as of late. What do you make of this Simplicity squad that we watched this weekend? Well, I guess not this weekend, this week. God.
I would just have to say they finally hit their stride. Some teams they get it right from the get-go, like Armada. Other teams they never find it all, and some teams just takes a minute, maybe it's late in the season, maybe it's early. You never know that point. But they have players like Death Panther, like Genetics, like Fails, and sometimes once they mesh, you hit that stride and you get going, and it's like catching hot fire, and you can't really slow down. And that's what we've been seeing from them recently. I mean, sitting at the top of the standings, it's proven, and now it's up for the rest of the teams to kind of try and catch up or find a way to slow them down. And that's always the really curious thing to see how teams adapt to that. It's like this team just got hot. How do we slow them down? Is it picks and bans? Is it in game? Do we have to shut a certain player down? And how you approach that and fight that determines if they run away with the rest of the division, or if they get caught up with by an out cold or other teams like that in the division.
I really feel like going into this week, Flashpoint hasn't been challenged a whole lot. I mean, you look at Sibby as a prime example of it, right? I think he's played 2-3 gods total. 90% of his play in the SML has been the Sun Wukong, and he just hasn't had the need to be pressured off on anything else. And so I feel like that Flashpoint kind of had that problem where they were winning and they kept winning, so they didn't have to really innovate. They didn't have to change anything. They were kind of sitting pretty. Simplicity was met with the losses. They had to kind of refine and retool what they were doing. And in that, it kind of led to some more innovation, and they've adapted with the meta a little bit more, I think. Flashpoint, also, this squad, I love them to death, but they do have a tendency to fall flat at the end of splits or when it really matters. And I was really hoping this year would be a little bit different, but it's looking like history is going to repeat itself again. And these guys, for whatever reason, as a team, when the lights shine the brightest, they become the smallest. They can never really fight into anything at a high level. They just lose whatever edge they have going into other fights. I hope that Flashpoint can kind of shake it off a little bit. It still looks like they're going to make the LAN. The mid-season invitational has the top two, I believe, for the SML and NA and EU. So they're definitely, in the fight there. I think Queso is mathematically eliminated. I think Out Cold have to win out, and Flashpoint has to lose out. And I don't think Flashpoint is going to lose out unless they're really in free fall. Out Cold have made a couple changes here and there. They're looking like they're shaking the rust off. Demi has been playing pretty well. The biggest thing for me with Out Cold, even though they found their wins over Queso, Queso was doing some real jank stuff that it just didn't work. And so they kind of got the easy dub. But Demi's kind of looked a little bit better. I think Prime has still played a pretty amazing year so far. Really, for me, what it comes down to is I think Frostiak has been pretty shaky in the jungle. And then they've had some kind of hit and miss ADC and support play. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think the chances for Out Cold are of making this land? Do you think Flashpoint's going to continue free falling? And Out Cold can they are former world champions on that roster. Can they keep the momentum going?
It's hard to say. I want to say no, Flashpoint aren't going to go into free fall. These guys are too good. The symptoms they're facing right now are, like you said, when they start off, they don't really have competition. Things heat up, and then they're kind of deadpanning toward the back end as a symptom. That's about team play and just getting your team play together, making sure you're not playing individually, making sure from minute 1 to minute 40 you're all on the same page, and usually that corrects itself. And while, like you said, Out Cold, former world champions on the squad, they themselves are highly skilled. It's just really hard to picture a team that started out as hot as Frostbite did, as Flashpoint did, I'm sorry, just dropping it that hard. I don't think any analyst will off the bat say, oh yeah, I think they're just going to deadpan it in and Out Cold just going to come back out of nowhere. It just might be a little bit mathematically too late, especially when you have Team Queso being inconsistent, dropping mods, you said, playing really, really weird stuff, which seems to be a little bit of their MO. There are certain teams that you don't expect them to drop games against that will kind of get them through the door into MSI, and then they can try and worry about it during the next phase.
Yeah, it's weird. The history is not kind of what Flashpoint is going to do here. But I want to say that this is the year that they finally break that curse. They can't remain in free fall. Out cold, I think has they waited too long to kind of turn on the boost, and I think this is the point where I think them missing out on midseason invitational is going to be huge for the motivation, and they might even make changes off of this. I personally, I don't think Frostiak is the best jungler for this team. He's a bit too streaky for my taste, and I think that's kind of impacted the team. But I mean, who else do you get? EU Combine has had spurts growth and kind of shrunk again. It's been a weird thing. The lower end scene for EU's never kind of been its strong point. It's always been filled at the top. But I don't know. There might be something there. And Flashpoint's never going to change. They have that the Eastern European guys are always going to stick together. They've been playing for the longest time. I think, if I'm honest, if Flashpoint lose out on midseason invitational, this might be the time for that team to takes a serious inward look and we can't win. We cannot win in our current iteration, but we'll see with that. Keem Queso on the other, they've already been eliminated. And I don't know what they're doing. They had Jackal as a coach for a week, and then he joined SSG. And I would like to think that he left some parting bits of wisdom, but it doesn't look like it. If we're being honest, he's got some real weird stuff going on in that team, and some of it I like, but it doesn't actually work, and that causes problems. So EU still in the air technically, but likely should be Simplicity and Flashpoint going into the midseason. If we take a look over in A on the other side, Armada's still sitting pretty at the top, 9 wins, 1 loss. And then we got Sanguine in second, 7-3, Cryptic 3-7, Space Station Gold 1-9. We finally have the answer to the middle of the pack. Sanguine and Team Cryptic were neck and neck at the start of the year. We didn't really know who was going to come out on top. It turns out it's Sanguine. The Sanguine is the best second team in the minor league. Cryptic has kind of fallen off. They've had infighting. They've had a lot of trouble with what their lineup is, and it's a little off. Something isn't there. Space Station Gold. As much as the meme is to hate on them, they have looked better almost every week. They've had a couple moments where they've kind of taken a step back, but overall, I can't really hate on this team. For a team that doesn't scrim, they are making improvements. And so that is better, but not great. I mean, in ASML, it's always the least amount of time to talk about because it's always Armada at the top. Yep, they still haven't done nothing. I guess we can say Armada lost Scream. They are now without that jungle. They have, who did they bring in as their new jungle? I forget.
I remember reading a tweet, but I was reading it more for the Space Station and Splyce news, and I didn't really remember who Armada said they picked up in replacement.
Oh boy, I don't either. I'm looking now because I know I should know it.
Same. I mean, because it was the smaller side of the drama. So
Armada. So Armada has not released who they're going to replace him with yet.
Okay.
Turns out, so we're still good. I think. No, this is Lavosky's. Lavosky would have tweeted it out though, right?
Yeah, the last thing on their Twitter was just the thank you screen.
Scream is left. So we still don't have an answer for who their replacement's going to be. You more than likely think it's going to be a Combine guy. So if we look, I'll look at who came into Combine NA last week, right? Rosters for NA Combine this last week. We go down the jungle list. We've got Freya, no. Glavis, maybe. Pagan, no. Aether, no. Nadaj, no. Kirmi, maybe. Kirmi's a good player, as is Glavis. Um, Animal, no. Glorify, no. So yeah, the big the big names are probably either the Glavis from the Awesome Jake team or Kiermi from the Huevos and Fuego. I think those are probably two of the
Hmm.
bigger ones that they could possibly pick up. Uh, looking at chat, they are saying Armada should get Homie Fa. I forgot Homie Fa still
Actually, wouldn't be a bad pickup.
was a player.
I don't
Yeah,
think.
that if he's willing to play, put the time in, and he's available, adding Homie Fa to that team, he fits in. He's a world class player. However, he did make the switch to mid for NRG for Worlds. So I don't know if he's like made a permanent change. Probably not. If he gets the call for the SML, he probably takes it. So that personally, if it that's kind of like the best scenario, high caliber. If it is, I think Homie Fa probably fits the bill the most. There might be some other names that just haven't been talked about. Uh, Homie FA has
I
apparently
mean,
been
yeah.
screwing with him. Just a rumor. There we go. That rumors.
Okay.
Everybody,
Well
where's
then.
the air horn? Breaking news: Homie FA to sign with Armada based on Twitch chat rumors. There we go. That's my headcanon now. So Armada going forward, they're gonna go to the LAN. They should still be just as strong. That is a SPL caliber team. I don't imagine them really slowing down. I think they can give some of these teams a run for the money. It is top 6 for the SPL, so their competition there could be sort of stiff. It'll be interesting to see how they kind of match up. I don't know. It'll be interesting. Sanguine, on the other hand, number 2 team for NASML. I don't know what to expect out of the Latums. I think they are equally likely to rise to the occasion as they are to sit back and kind of be overwhelmed by the competition. Either way, I'm happy to see the Armada boys, everybody on that team. I like Sanguine. I love that they're there. They are my feel good team. Finally getting that Lat Am connection, a team into actual competitive Smite is a good thing. Next step for them is going to be the SPL potentially. I would love to see them kind of get picked up by another, maybe a Trifecta or a Luminosity, drops
Yeah.
their roster because they're underperforming and picks up, these SML guys. That'd probably be really cool. All right,
Yeah.
so that's enough of the SML. Actually, do you have anything you want to add onto our SML talks here?
Just that, I mean, when you talked about who they might have to compete with, along with Armada, if they were to make it to the MSI or even above. Sanguine, I get to watch them a lot in Smite Prime, so I get to watch a lot of their gameplay, and I agree with you. When it comes to the next level, I I think they just make too many mistakes that aren't punished
Mm-hmm.
enough in SML, and even some of the other things I see them playing in Smite Prime. That at SPL level against a Dignitas, United, I mean SK, a lot of these top 6, 7 teams, that just wouldn't fly. There are times when you see Yarkor and Panatome go extremely deep, going for a back harpy, trying to invade on the enemy blue buff to try and put pressure, and they get collapsed on, but somehow they live long enough because other team can't hit their skill shots. Other teams can't do
Right.
this, collapse correctly, be coordinated, and they find a way to get away with it. You won't get away with that at the next level. For Armada, talking about Homie FA, I think, is he as good as Scream? Debatable, but he's solid. That's all they really need. They're already a world-class roster, as you said. They just need someone that can step in, that's solid, and doesn't have to be just as good, but can just fill the role consistently, and they'll still be able to compete with these SPL teams come MSI. So I'm still excited to see them play, even with Scream gone.
Yeah, I think that's really the nail on the head. Is the one thing that we're seeing more and more is as Smite has evolved and really matured is the lack of forgiveness on mistakes. There's been several points throughout the year and even in last year where the game isn't decided by whoever's winning, as like whoever's hitting their stuff the bestest. Because if both teams are hitting the stuff,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. It comes down to who makes a mistake and can you capitalize on it. Those are kind of the Smite has kind of changed into that, where that's predominantly where you're seeing a lot of wins come off of right now. You look at all of these botched enhanced fire giant fights, right? And so there's a lot of different things that go into that. And as much as the players seem to hate it, I love the added difficulty around the objectives fights and the dances. I think it adds another layer to the game that's needed, and people just need to be able to adapt to it. So Armada, I think, will have a better time doing that, like you said. Sanguine, they make too many mistakes. They are going to get kind of abused, and I think just them being able to go to the LAN event though will be a big learning experience. Getting some games. I hope that the format allows for them to get games onto these top better teams. I know personally my combine team scrims, the Netrioid boys, the Sanguine guys, a lot. And so if they're having time to scrim us at the combine, that's time they're not scrimming with other SML teams or SPL teams. So I question the entire quality of what the scrims they're getting is and who they're getting them against. So hopefully they can get some really good competition there. All right, so that's SML. We'll talk about last week's games that we predicted. Well, I predicted, I guess. There's a transition into the we here. We've got Team Rival and E United predicted to be a rival win over E United. It was a rival win over E United. Rival looking still strong as ever. E United having the change with Imalidu, a lot of hype around that. I wasn't sold on it. My big thing with E United is, and the reason they worked with Vedium was that nobody was a superstar, so they didn't play through any one person. It was kind of fluid. You add Imalidu is that superstar guy. All of a sudden, you're playing through him, whether you realize it or not, and that kind of changes how things go. I won't say they did that or didn't do it. I mean, they did put, Imalidu on, more hyper carried gods. They put him on the Chronos and things, and it didn't really work. They did get one win, but I think that was more of Rival just being out of position. Rival is looking like the second best team in the world, so I don't know if we should be worried about United. But if I'm being completely honest, I don't like the long term for Imalidu is shaky. The short term looks bad. What do you think?
I just had to agree because when I watched E United play with Vedium, it did seem like a complete team effort. It was Benji going off in the solo lane, Ice Baby making those great rotations in the jungle. Big Man Tings was holding his own in the mid lane and actually performing better than I thought he might, especially being kind of that rookie joining the roster. And then Callus and Vedium were just running dual lane. And also when you have Vedium being able to hold his own in this meta, when you have the supports roaming to the solo lane a lot, and even better when Callus can roam anywhere because Benji can hold his own. But now a lot of their draft, as I was perusing through the picks and bans, do seem to sort of formulate around Emil to making sure he gets on comfortable gods that are either safe and or hyper carries toward the late, and you have to pick your entire composition around protecting the hyper carry. And when that happens, it kind of castrates everyone else that was doing their best to make it a team effort to be subservient to this one guy. And not saying that it's all Emil 2's fault and he's just being selfish and stuff like that. That's just how the team has to play because that's what he's used to playing, and they had to put a band-aid over the situation because this was a last minute thing. It wasn't anything they could have overtly prepared for. Vadium said he got homesick, had to leave. You gotta find a way to fill it in, and that's all you can do. They're doing their best, but I think you're right. Just such a drastic change at this stage in the season before MSI. I don't know if they turn it around right now, long term. Maybe if they buy into it more and perfect their craft around that play style, then sure, it can work out. But that's what it takes everybody buying into the Emil 2 factory. And I've seen other teams from other MOBAs when they don't buy into supporting one player, it just doesn't ever pan out.
Yeah, I mean, we look ahead, and United doesn't have to play again until June 6th. They don't play again until week 11. They play against Splyce. and then they play the next day against Dignitas again. So they don't have the easiest road ahead of them, but they do have that time off to get more synergy, to figure out what they're doing, and so that's always a good thing. But I do wonder if it is going to be enough. I don't know. There's so many factors kind of up in the air still. I don't know. I put a big question mark and I put a pin into United. And could they finish in the top six? They could, yeah. They were right there with SK, I believe. And one of those, they weren't a top tier team, but they were solidly in the middle. I don't think that Emily removes them outright from that. I just think it's going to take some time to kind of restructure. And they might just run into problems where we've seen teams in the past with, CLG last year, where they're on paper, this team looks so good, and they just can't put it together. So I want them to kind of figure it out. But, and also, we have to remember they played rival and lost to rival, which is expected. And I don't know. That's the big thing. They maybe we're overreacting, but at this point, I can't really throw my weight behind believing in the United roster. Our second game from last week was Dignitas and SK, and this one was a barn burner. Went the distance, absolutely loved it. This is probably one of the best sets of the year. Dignitas win it 3-2, and it goes all the way to the game number 5. And what can you say? Dignitas win 2 straight. SK win 2 straight. Dig finally pulls out the win in the end. A lot of shifting momentum. SK really showing that they are a team to be taken seriously. Dignitas kind of got outplayed, a little outdrafted after the initial 2 games. They sat on the Artemis. So what we knew would happen, as more people are leaving the duos lane alone, they're starting to put more unsafe gods in that position. So gods who are just trying to eat up the farm and get as big and as fat as possible so they can make a lot of rotation. Ataraxia goes 8-2 the first game. Second game, Ataraxia goes 7-2. Third game, Big Daddy Zap puts on his dad pants, picks the on her, and absolutely shoves his spear in every orifice of Ataraxia. Just really took him to town. Made him go out and pick his own switch and then beat him with it. Like, this has been the most severe dad dicking we have seen by one player to another all year. And it was really great to watch. Like, the absolute dismantling of Zatman to the entire team. I mean, man wasn't finished with the team at Ataraxia. No, he went to mid lane and made plays. He went all around the map to make play. He got his. That was a 21-minute game, and that was on the back of Zatman. I saw Zatman doing a one-handed push-up, and his back was so strong from carrying Zatman. Good Lord. Zap goes on again. Next game does largely the same thing. 4-0. Paul plays out of his mind on the hell. Goes 5-1. SK's got the momentum. And then all of a sudden, next game, 22-minute Dignitas. You're like, hey, young bucks. No, this is still our league. They come back. Boy, howdy. You're new to the Smite scene. How was it watching this set for you?
It was wild, and it was crazy because this entire season when I watched Dig, I'm like, I wonder when someone's going to punish Ataraxia for the way that he builds. And I say that because the way Dignitas works is they have so many OP players on their squad, all these guys top 5 in the world in their own positions, and it allows Ataraxia to sit in that lane, farm, and he goes for these sort of late game carry builds where it's just super slow scaling, got to get 2 or 3 items first, and once it hits that back portion of the game, I do so much damage. It doesn't matter if your team decides to try and make a comeback at 40 minutes because I'm popping you for 400, 500 crit just out of nowhere. And it's like Ataraxia, where did this damage come from? It's like, well, he's just been building up these late game, the classic Aussie, rushing Aussie first and then going on from there. And Zapman said, I'm not having any of that. I'm going to style on you. And it just seems wherever Zapman's performance goes, Paul's goes as well. And I think because it takes pressure off of Paul to perform. And so when Zapman pops off, it draws pressure and allows Paul to pop off because he just feels so relieved. And I wasn't surprised that Belair, the games he didn't pop off on and didn't do well and didn't do his job, it was just a symptom of how the overall game was going. But Belair's always been this consistent guy in the solo lane, especially when he gets his Kamazots or any sort of pick that is picked to nullify his other laner. He does very well at that job. But eventually, Dig is best known also for their adaptation. And they were just able to adapt so much better than SK can account for. And that's why they're the number one in the SPL right now, because even when they get knocked down, their adaptation, their draft phase, and even in how they play in game and macro is just head above heels over any other team right now. Save maybe a rival, I think, in that way to
Mhm.
adapt form after a loss. But besides rival, they're just better than anyone else at adapting from between games. Because any other team that goes up to, down to, and then goes to a game 5 and you're not Dignitas, they might lose the series to SK because they just don't have the mental and they just cannot adapt in the draft and in game like that. They just can't.
Absolutely. I think Dignitas from last year, with zeros and with Arkle, I think they lose this game 5 to SK hands down. They that was a team that never could bounce back, didn't have the mental fortitude, and that is the biggest change that we've seen with this Dignitas roster. With adding Hurrywind and adding Ataraxia, this team is resilient. The comms are flowing better. Their picks are going better. Biggie is able to do what he wants to do easier. Zeros is a great player, but his god pool is not as deep and wide as Hurry's is. Hurry being able to play a lot more, whereas Zeros probably has more concentrated, higher spikes in what he can play. And then you look at that and Ataraxia, it's funny. I'm looking at what he built, right? So the first 2 games, his final builds are Chin Size, Titan's Bane, Devos, Oboe, XC, Silver Branch. Same exact build second game where he won. He won. The next game gets farmed by the Zapman trying to go the same build. The next game doesn't change up the build again, still loses. Game after that where they won, doesn't change up the build again. So Ataraxia is nothing but consistent. He's going for that Silver Branch build, which is we've seen pretty popular. I really like it on a certain group of hunters. You look at Rom, you look at Artemis and Apollo. All of them have that stim, that attack speed stim on one of their abilities, or in Apollo's case, is passive. And what it really allows them to do is to overcap the attack speed. You get that back in power, I believe it is, with the Silver Branch bow. Silver Branch bow passive. For each 0.02 attack speed you go over the cap, you gain 1 physical power. The stats on it are 35% attack speed, 30 physical power, and 10 pen. That's insane. You add that. That's why we're seeing the Artemis start to come back. That's why we're seeing Apollo kind of creep back in only on Nate. And I think as people kind of catch on to that, I'm surprised we're not seeing more of those picks. We've seen the Hachi or the Jing really be the go-to hunters everywhere. I expect to see the Artemis kind of creep back in, especially with people being in that lane. But I think it was interesting you said that when Zap pops off, Paul pops off. I think there's a little bit of truth to that, because when Paul is able to make these plays, when the other team kind of has to take pressure off of him, he does really well. He can hit it. He can set. He's his own setup guy. For when a guy plays Hebo, he can knock you up, get to you with the carpet, and then one you, and then his threes back up again. There's a lot that he can do to you. Paul started off the year pretty slow for him. I think that was one of the bigger things, is people were saying, "Oh, he's starting off too slow. He's not good." I think he started off slow for him, for our expectations of him. And then, Belair has been playing out of his mind. I think he's probably one of our. I think he's a top three, top four solo laner in the league right now, depending
For
on
sure.
the day. And then Sam. Sam's not lighting the world on fire, but he's playing at a very high level. And this team just works very well together. They're a really cohesive unit. Uh, I eat the crow. I eat crow all the time. Where I said I would have kicked Belair and kicked Nate, not Nate, kicked Zapman for better players, but they have really proven to be really good components of this roster. I mean, they win off of Zapman's back. They get set up to win off of Belair's back. I mean, he plays the Achilles, and in both of their games, they come back in and makes a big difference for his team. And then game 5 happened, and Dig just do Dig things where they get all of what they want, and then they pull out the Aphrodite out of nowhere. You know, we're seeing some major changes to Afro, where a lot of people are looking at her again. And so I expect we'll see more of that. But Dig always, what's impressed me most about Dig is these were already great players, and I think Trix Tank is having the best year of his career. I think Hurry's having the best. Like, these are all players individually who have been amazing, and this year together they're having the best years of their life, and that's something special. Like, that is, if they can keep this up the rest of the year, there's nobody who can touch them. They are just so resilient across the board that they're a team I do not ever want to play. SK, they still got a lot. There's still so much potential in that team. They got a lot to learn, but they could be right there with Dignitas by the end of the year.
And for Dig, I think that comes down to coaching. I love what you said, and you being a coach yourself is just when you have a good coach like Biggie, just draw the best out of you so that you go from being good to great. You know, there are those teams that don't have coaches and they're good, but you're just like there always seems to be something missing when they lose. When they win, it's like, oh wow, fantastic. But when they lose, it's like something's missing, and usually it's that coach that is the guy on the outside that sees the mistakes, sees the strategy where you can look to improve, and basically takes you to that next level. SK, I also agree. I think that these guys, and I've always, when I watched them, I was like, they look so much better than I thought that they would have when at the start of the season. They just keep going up. Their ceiling is so high, and they had a match day, and I'll leave that to later on in the conversation to talk about that. But when these guys are on, they look like top 3 material. It's just those couple games, those few games where they just everything doesn't click. Paul has a bad game. Zapman pops off, but just doesn't pop off hard enough. And it just seems Neilma and then Sanford Soccer can't contribute at times. And the pieces just don't fully come together to get those games. But if they can be more consistent, I would say, then SK Gaming can definitely be top 3, top 4 material, because they are a scary team when they're on.
Yeah, SK. If Paul is playing lights out like he can, if Sam is playing lights out like he can, Zap playing lights, if every one of these players is hitting like they can, then yeah, that they can beat anybody in the league. They're that team. They're the dark horse team. They are the other team in this league right now. I don't want to play ever. I don't want them in the first round. I don't want to touch them anywhere. They're that trap game where, it's just Zapman team. No, Zapman's gonna hand you your ass through your mouth. He's gonna just grab it and
hard
throw
L.
it through you. Yeah, just here, eat it. I'm like, no. He's like, I don't care. Zapman is such a weird character because he can go 8-0, killing everybody, and then the next game he goes 0-18. And it's like, Zapman, just do what you did the game before. What are you doing? What's going on? What happened? But SK Dig, really great set. Probably a set I will rewatch at some point. It was that good. I think one of the best sets we've had this year. I think that's right up there with that Rival and Dig set. It was a really good one. All right, so that's it for last week. Moving in, before we talk about this week's matches, Roster apocalypse type news. We have Sino moving away from Splyce, Moswell retiring, both kind of citing I guess toxic is like what I'm hearing behind the scenes, which is like the exaggerated version, not the politically correct one. Just bad team environment, not enjoying what was going on, not having fun. And so to replace those two, Vin from SSG coming over, Veninu in the mid lane, and then they bring on Verizial Scream over in the jungle role. Former teammates from E United had butted heads there, but now put their differences aside. I get that's the angle that I keep hearing pushed. I don't remember that being the case. I don't really remember them, hating each other and having to get off the team. But it is what it is. You kind of forget some of that
Whatever's
stuff
best
when
for
they
the
win.
W.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's that. But then being the one who was gassed up by Scream, I think we can put all that bad blood, if there ever was any, aside. Splyce, interesting changes. I don't know how I feel about it. Moswell for Ven Ninu, I think I like. I have been openly critical of Moswell. I have not liked Moswell. I will go on the record. I do not think Moswell is a good SPL mid laner. And I will say that over and over because I think he was really benefited by the meta at Worlds, where he got to play Alpoash and Raijin and just press 4 at people and not die. And that was all he had to do. So I think, and he was a good player, but I don't think he deserved as much hype as he got off of that. And if I'm Splyce, I get you just won the world championship, but you could have been better. And this proves it. They bring in Vin in. And then you look at Sino. Sino won the world's MVP, but I don't think he was. I think Divios hands down was the MVP, and he got robbed. And Sino, he had some flashy plays. He got his Neja, and that was the big narrative: is you don't give Sino his Neja. They keep winning on it. But okay, and then they replace him with Scream. I think I like Scream being there because from what I understand, Scream is a smart player, a smite player. And what I mean by that is he kind of does the deep dives into the numbers and the comps and everything like that. And that is entirely what Aurora and Divios are about. You can ask Aurora for any stat in the game. He can give it to you. You can ask him for, what an item costs. You can ask him what he played 2 years ago in a game, and he can probably tell you what happened. The kid's nuts, and he just brings that that knowledge of the game. And then Divios will literally spend 60 hours in jungle practice a week. The dude's nuts. And so adding Scream to that, I think, will be good. And it's going to allow them to game plan a lot. They I don't know what the fuck they were trying today. They got way out there. We'll talk about that in a minute. But that's a team I'm excited to see what the fuck they do. But Jesus, they need to ease us into these things. SSG, on the other hand. Okay, I'll let you talk about Splyce. Go ahead. What do you think about the Splyce change?
I was just gonna give a small comment about today. Yeah, that I don't know, but as far as overall, it had to have been something about toxicity, right? Because the video that they put out for officially for Smite Pro before the games, it was Aurora talking about disagreements within the team about how they should play, but I was a little bit hesitant because I was like, well, that's something that this early in an entire year's worth of Smite with no like spring or summer split, you just work through that if it's just objectively disagreements in how the game should be played and not something bigger than that. So I was perplexed by that. When they said Moswell was homesickness, I was like, okay, Bedium had the same issue. And a lot of this is just going to take time. Like today's set, I feel like it's just going to take time getting Venenu comfortable and how they want him to play, getting Scream integrated because we have 3 people that smart. And I can attest to what you said about Aurora because I got to cast with him at my school one time. And I remember talking with him about Yorm before Yorm officially like came out. And he was like, yeah, well, tank is great, but he can be played if you build these items. He can do a lot of damage in mid and stuff. And sure enough, people start playing him in mid and he's blowing people up. And I was like, okay, so this guy's a predictive god on what the meta is when it comes to certain gods and how they'll be played. But it's gonna have to come down to who's gonna be the shot caller, who's gonna take over those priorities. Can you have three big brain people in one room that all think a game should be played a certain way? And if it's three unique perspectives, it's going to be really, really hard to come to an agreement on how you should play it symbiotically one specific play style. So that's going to be interesting to watch. I think long term, this can be good for them. I'm really looking at Venenu because on Space Station, I think that he was a little bit, I'll say, underrated. I think in a lot of their games, he was one of the people that was performing the most consistently out of all those guys. And I was like, man, I wish Venenu was on another team, because on another team, he might be playing better than on Space Station. So I want to see how he does, but it might take us a minute beyond MSI to see how this is all going to pan out.
Yeah, I agree on pretty much every point. I think Vin was a pretty good bright spot on that SSG roster, and it'll be interesting to see how he kind of gels with this team. Looking forward to it. Do you think this team qualifies for midseason? Do you think they're going to be finished top six?
Oof. No, I mean, if they can learn to synergize with their strategy and how they play extremely quickly, then maybe it's either going to take that, it's going to take some really, really good individual performances. Seeing the other teams that they had to work through to get to that slot. I mean, and I just don't know if I've seen any of the members of Splyce, to my knowledge, just individual. It always seems like it's a group win. Cyclone Spin has had great performance this year, but it always feels like it's a team win, and it would take maybe an individual pop off against some of these teams. And looking at the schedule, I mean, maybe if the schedule lines up before MSI, I mean, they play United next week, Renegades. I don't know if that's a win, and then they round it out with Pittsburgh Knights. So I think maybe they go 1-2 optimistically against an EU
Hmm.
9 team that just switched out a meal to. Optimistically 1-2. I don't know. I just don't know if they'll be able to turn it around in that short amount of time.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch and see, especially after today, seeing what we saw,
Yeah.
what their evolution kind of looks
Yikes.
like. On the other side of things, we did see SSG make their changes. Vin left, and then we saw Andy switch from jungle back to mid, and then they added. Uh, oh my god, I'm blanking on it right now. They added
They
Sino.
added
Of course, they
Sino,
added
yeah,
Sino
Sino,
ship.
yeah,
They
Sino.
added
Yeah.
the Sino jump ship from Splyce to SSG. Splyce, I'm not sure. I'm not sure this is an improvement. Andy mid did not work the last time we saw it. It was not great. It was a bad experiment, and we're back to it. I especially on LAN and how good the competition is and how good mid laners are right now. I expect Andy to get farmed. The Especially because his go-to god has been Raw. If you try to play Raw right now and do these dive comps and all of this, you're getting obliterated.
You're
There's
gonna have a
no
bad time.
way I see Andy mid being what this team needed. This has got to be like the last chance for Andy, where it was like, hey, Andy, you used to play mid. We were going to kick you from jungle, but now here's your out. We've got Sino here. So you want one more try for mid to see if you're good? I don't know that. I don't know. I don't like it. I think they could have got a better mid laner. I mean, look up like again. Let's even combine. Let's look at combine mids. Is there anybody? No, there's really not. Is there any combine SML level mids? Yeah, I think. What? Who do we?
I mean,
We got Meerkat. We got Meerkat.
Meerkat. I mean,
Shaka
if
is
they
a
could
good
work out
option.
something with, I think if they could work out something with Sanguine, maybe Shinto. I don't. It depends on how familiar the LatAm team is, like how do you want to stay with this team and play through, or are you just looking for a fast track to SPL? Because I think Shinto would be fine. Um, Consistent at least, solid. The way you talk about Anister mid sounds like he'd be an improvement regardless. So that's someone. But then again, I'm a sanguine fanboy, so of course I'm going to bring up Shinto and it's like, oh, Shinto, yes, do it. But I mean, you're right. There's not a ton of options, and it just
Mhm.
seems like it was like, yeah, well, we need someone to fill mid. He used to play mid. We don't have anyone we're looking at right now, or at least this is such a short notice trade that we just need someone to do it. So you're lucky. You're not fired yet. You're still
Yeah.
here.
I mean, you look at SML mids. You've got Meerkat, cool, pretty prime, can't move. Chapo has been doing well with Space Station Gold. I don't think that's your. I don't think that's Andy's fine if Chapo's your only option. Death Panther and Sops are probably the two I look at the most from the minor league. I think those are probably really interesting options. Death Panther known more for his hunter play than his traditional mages. I don't think that's really a bad thing. I think Panther can do really well, and Sops has done really well in the mid role as well. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to get really behind this. I mean,
Yeah.
kick Andy. We talked about Homie Fa earlier going for jungle to the Armada squad. He was the mid sub. He was the mid replacement for Yaman. That alone should speak volumes to what he was, doing in the mid lane. So give Homie Fa a call. See if he'll move down. I don't know. I do not like the Andy call, and I don't know what's your take on this. Obviously you weren't really here for the Andy mid days, but just knowing that they're swapping their jungle for the mid laner and adding a new jungle. I mean, does this make SSG any better in your mind?
I already didn't like Andy jungle, so
Mm-hmm.
Andy mid. No, I mean Sino. It seems like sometimes until Alpha Jackal kind of got there, that Space Station needed direction. This might give them more of a direction, since one of the reasons why he left Splyce was because he didn't like the way that Splyce was trying to play the game. So maybe, but I feel like there's just more than there's so many fixes that need to happen for Space Station. They're definitely looking better, but there's so many different fixes. I don't think this helps them get any better anytime soon. It's an improvement, but it's like minuscule. It's not anything that you can be like, oh my gosh, Space Station is going to start cracking the top 7 even and start beating some of these middle of the pack teams. It's just nah, nah.
I don't see it, especially from Andy mid. I don't see it. Call the best up, see what he's doing. You just do anything. I don't know. Like you got options. So I don't know. But
Yeah.
we'll see. I could be proven wrong. I don't think I will
I'm
be.
I'm rooting for my guy Shinto. Just do it. If you're looking for just do it. Call him up. He's
Could be
good.
interesting.
I'm sure
Yeah.
you can. I'm sure it'll work. Maybe. Vamos sanguine.
Vamos sanguine. All right. So I mean that's enough of the Rosh Apocalypse stuff. Let's get into today's games. First game of the day is Trifecta Renegades. Viva la Visa! The boys are finally in NA. And then our second game of the day was Splyce SK. We'll break those two games down for you. And then after that, we'll talk about predictions with Dignitas, Trifecta, and SK Renegades. Trifecta, a team who is almost there several times and just not able to finish it out. Weekend, as much as people hate him, as much as there's a meme around him, Weekend has been outstanding this year.
Yeah, he is not the problem.
This is not a statement I could make in a lot of seriousness before. I'm going to say it real slowly and into the mic as much as I can for everybody out there. Weekend has played better than adapting. Weekend is a better jungle to start the year off than adapting. And that's crazy to me. I never in a million years would have thought that sentence would be a true sentence I could say. And the problems or for this trifecta squad have come largely out of the solo lane. They, for whatever reason, refuse to ban King Arthur. They refuse to play King Arthur. Ducky is a man on an island. If I didn't know this team, I would think that they hate Ducky. That they just want him to leave. They don't want to kick him. They just want to fuck his life up to the extent where he just doesn't want to play anymore. And I don't get it. I don't understand. They've even got a coach now. They've got KSR. And you would think a coach could look at this and go, hey, we as a team have played King Arthur the most. And we as a team are losing the most. I wonder what we could do differently. It's so stupid. Just give Ducky King Arthur or ban it away. Just once. It won't kill you, I promise. I don't understand it. Yeah. Fundamentally, it angers me as a coach to let that pick come through time after time after time and get fucked by it and not do anything.
Yeah, I remember watching this because for those of you that don't know, I work at Skillshot. I do camera op for Paladins, so that's a lot of fun. But I get to catch the games. Oh, kitty! Oh my god! I have my cat. It's in my room. He's a dick, so I can't break him out, but I would if I could. Yours seems so much nicer. But anyways, before I was distracted. Yeah, so I got to catch, I catch the games in between matches while I'm doing stuff. And when I saw Ducky, I was like, okay, the Nox picks into King Arthur, it's an attempt to adapt. Since you can't play it and you won't ban it, adapt to it. But the roaming Circuit support from Ionic had a sloppy series, and it just didn't work, couldn't hold down the King Arthur. And then when game 2, when I saw Ducky losing to King Arthur on Camazotz, who's supposed to be like the counter to King Arthur, I was like, oh no. This is done. It's over. When you pick the counter to King Arthur, you can't. And even at its worst, Camazotz at least survives the lane. Doesn't get out. Doesn't get just completely beat like a drum in lane, and that's his entire job. If you can't beat the King Arthur with him, which you should, you don't get beat like a drum. When he couldn't do that, I was like, well, this series is over. This is done. We pick on Ducky. There was a lot of things that went wrong in this series. Again, I say Ionic just did not have the best series ever. It was really sloppy play, and I don't know. I think Renegades kind of lucked out on having Trifecta be their first match coming back in their first series because it allowed them to get kind of easy pickings the way this Trifecta team is playing right now.
Yeah, there was a tweet over the weekend that had Hazer make he updated his tier list, right? And at the start of the year, he had everybody from Trifecta basically towards the bottom, mid support ADC with solo towards the bottom and weekend in the middle of the pack. We look at the start. Well, no, sorry. He had Weekend and Ducky at the bottom, Lasbury, Ionic, Wowie as number 2. Now we look at it, Weekend up in the middle, Ducky still kind of there, Lasbury, Ionic, Wowie still at the bottom. And I think one of the biggest things that I saw consistently was that Lasbra has not adjusted well to mid. He was a very smart jungler. He is a big dumb mid laner. I saw this several times. I got a coach tryout, and I see the same things that I saw in their scrims that I see in their play right now. Lasbra goes too deep. Lasbra doesn't have good positioning. And then one of the things, and as a coach, it's infuriating because it's something you beat into players from a very early point, is when you're retreating, you retreat as a unit, as a team. Lasbra loves to retreat on his own. If everyone goes left, you best believe Lasbra's going right, and then he gets kills for it. He has died more times to bad pathing than I think anything else. Lasbra is not looking good as a mid laner, and it's not mechanics. It's decision making. It's the other stuff. He's had a couple games on Raijin where he looks like a monster, but then other games he's making very basic mistakes, and that's very problematic. This is a Trifecta's a roster that I expect not to make it the rest of the year. I'm calling for a roster apocalypse around Trifecta before the end of the year. After MSI, I expect this team to explode. Wowie is a non-factor. Ionic is played straight up bad. There was a point he was on Terra that he kept walking into a Merlin ice, like the icicle drops, and he just kept walking into it. Like, and I was just like, what are you doing? Like he takes stupid damage. And as a support, sometimes that's okay, but a lot of the time it's not. And he takes some stupid damage. Ducky, I can't hate on Ducky because they're just fucking him. They're just fucking him. Like, give my man a lifeline. Give my man a chance. They come in today and they had a couple moments where they looked like they could play well. And then they were just like, nah, let's not do that.
I mean,
the first game they take Renegades. Well, I should say Renegades takes in the 48 minutes. If you can't beat a team who just for the first time is playing together, what are you doing? You guys have been here. You guys have been practicing. Yeah. You guys have had actual games. 48-minute game goes to Renegades. Second game we don't know. Also goes to Renegades. Game number 3, also 48 minutes, goes to Renegades. By game number 3, Funball was on Poseidon ADC.
Yeah.
And they still, he went 7-0. 7-0 as Poseidon ADC. What? Trifecta, what are you doing, baby? No.
I think because you talk about Lasbra and positioning and pathing, and the crazy thing is they picked the Jormungandr, and what's he known for other than when he's mid he can do good damage and be just a good disruptor? He has an ultimate that literally if you get caught out and you pop it in time, you can get the hell out of dodge and get away near scot-free. And still 1-3-0 didn't really have an impact. As far as the AD carry Poseidon goes, I just think that at that point Renegades was fucking with them. They said, "Oh, we're gonna bait you because we took Poseidon mid earlier. We pick it early. We're gonna bait you, and then when you pick all this, like we're gonna basically cancel out the Poseidon that had a decent game, but really his Krakens and the space control was there. That was really what." I think in my mind, game 1 made hard for Trifecta was that ultimate. Oh, we're just going to take an AD carry because he also builds really well into like on hit, auto attack based stuff. And now your entire draft is screwed because now we basically have a double hunter composition with enough magic and AD and physical to make you cross build. And I felt really bad for Trifecta during this series. That's all I'll say. I felt really bad for them. And like you said,
but they did
I felt bad
for
Weekend.
Game number 1. All right, they picked King Arthur. Nox does okay into King Arthur. He makes him so he can't do stuff. But Ducky doesn't play mages. Ducky front lines. Ducky tanks. You look at that. It's a Nox, a Nemesis, Discordia, Circuit, Hachiman. Where's your tank? Where's your front line? Where's your peel? Where's your anything? They just press W at you. You can do nothing. Ducky misses his 2. Oh, well, I'm just standing around for 10 seconds as I wait for it to come on cooldown. I missed my ult. I'm useless. This was like, I get it. But no. Put your solo laner on something that can be a tank or harass, just that can take damage. He did not look well on the Nox. He didn't die, but he got bullied out of the lane, and then in team fights, you could just see him like auto attack, auto attack. Like there's nothing he could do. His combo was down. He was on cooldown, and there was nothing. You already had the Circuit into the Nox. The Nemesis pick here is baffling. Trifecta just had a just all around bad game, and Renegades got off easy. They play anybody else. They play LG, they lose. Cherio didn't look great to start off the game. That's why the game goes 48 minutes. This was a game of throws, and Trifecta can be better than this. We've seen it. But
Well,
God
you
damn.
know, LG bans King Arthur first of all, so that's step number one. Why do you think they don't ban the King Arthur? Because all I can think of
They
is
hate
they think
Ducky.
it's wasting a slot. Like, really, it's like,
Ducky.
are you afraid of wasting a ban slot? Like, you ban Geb and Kabrakan. Like, why not swap Geb with King Arthur? Or, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're trying to set up the Nemesis from Weekend. I think that you can definitely swap King Arthur out with one of those last two bans. The X Ball, fine. The Freya, sure, but and then Raffer support Achilles. I remember seeing the support. I was like, support Achilles? Like, how is this going to work out? But it's Trifecta, so it works. It works somehow, some way.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. At this point, I don't know what you do with Trifecta. Wowie. When's the last time we've said Wowie's name and he's done anything on this team of merit? He hasn't really. Lasbra has done bad things. Ionic has done bad things. Weekend's done good things. Ducky's known for getting fucked. And so like there's nothing good on this team right now. Like there's good talent in the SML and in Combine even that you could add to this team and make changes. I think, I don't know. At the end of the day, Weekend's gonna fall off. That's what he does every year. He starts off. He when the meta fits him, he does well. As soon as the meta shifts away from the aggro, everything, he takes a tumble. I would not be surprised to see Lasbro switch back over to jungle because he had a really good showing on it. I would like to see it again. Then you see, another mid laner kind of come up out of nowhere and get a shot, or I don't know, like you see them just get rid of the jungler and have something else come there, or Ducky finally gets the boot and they add up Mando Warrior or Solo or Troll, or one of these guys gets a shot. Trifecta is going to make a change. I guarantee it. Ionic could go. Ratcheteer, I feel like, would be a better pickup at this point. Jigs is still out there. Like, there are so many people who could be on this roster and make it work better. I don't know. Renegades look sloppy, but they're just slightly less sloppy. And so they get the W. You ever done beat the dead horse?
Yep. Hashtag free Ducky. That's all I have to say. That's it.
Hashtag free Ducky. Next game up, we have SK versus Splyce. Splyce off of their changes with Scream in the jungle and Vin in the mid lane. Splyce didn't look great. Who's Jigs playing for? He's not playing for anybody. He's playing for his couch. He's playing on his ass. Like, he's just not in the pro league, the minor league. He's not in anything. He's just not playing.
Just chilling.
SK came in after their time off, having powered up for a while, looking good. They lose the dig, but all the training kind of paying off, and then Splyce looking shaky here and there, taking dig to the limit, almost getting a set win, missing out. Splyce play the Nox 2 games in a row. It doesn't work. I don't know why they went for it back-to-back games. Just didn't do anything for them. Didn't really like it. They play the Achilles ADC. Don't know why. And then they play the Afro solo, which, okay, I kind of get. But this They tried something really weird game 1 and game 2 and 3. They kind of toned it down a little bit, but I don't know. The Splyce kind of came out swinging, and I don't know what they were swinging at all. SK looked good. SK, continued their good plays. That man kind of popped off game 1. Neil Ma is the best support, second best support. I don't know. It's either between him or Trickstink as the best support in the FPL right now. He's playing out of his mind. Easily in the running for like an MVP candidate. Neil is this Hercules game 1 gave me goosebumps. I'm gonna have, as a coach, I'm gonna have nightmares about running into an enemy Herc support. It was gross. SK kind of dispatch Splyce in pretty easy fashion. We got 36 minutes, 28 minutes, and then a 23-minute game. None of it looking that hard for SK. SK, I think, gonna get back close to the mic again. I think we'll finish the year with SK higher in rank and wins than Pittsburgh Knights. I think this team has a lot of potential, and they're meeting it. They're growing every time they come out. They're learning. This is a team to fear. I do not want to play SK at any point. It's a trap game, and they're gonna beat your ass.
They're gonna beat. Just very succinct. They're gonna beat your ass. But I mean, I can't disagree, especially on the Pittsburgh Knights thing. Not completely. I'll hold the bold predictions on my own side, but I see where you're coming from because it feels like Pittsburgh has kind of reached
get a little hair on your chest first.
Feels like they've reached their cap, and SK only has everywhere to go but up. When you look at this series, I can tell you, Splyce, it seemed like they got a little bit too hype over their roster changes and what they could do now. They're like, you know what? This is great because what we want to do is we want to get a composition that can play around Cyclospin. We get the Aphrodite, we get the Nox, the Jormungandr to disrupt the back line, and then Scream and Cyclospin just go in, Pele, Achilles, and just wreck them all. And then SK was like, no, because you're not going to win the solo lane. Sanford Soccer is going to go 0017. He's going to be James Bond's dad. And I just said Nirama just went off on the he stole that one away from Aurora and then went off on him. He said, your Hercules? No, this is my Hercules now. This is mine. And
I made this.
Game 2, yes. And in game 2, Splyce like, okay, we're gonna add one more carry. Instead, we're gonna have traditional Hunter, but then we're gonna have the Ratatosker there, and then the Cabrakan can maybe do what the Jormungandr can against what SK was throwing out. And then again, SK said, no, we're not gonna let you do that because it doesn't make any sense, honestly. And then by the time Splyce tried to go with something more traditional, Venenu was getting picked in game 3. Things just weren't clicking. And by that time, SK already had the series. It was just about how they finished the series. So I'll chalk this one up for Splyce to growing pains. They experimented a little bit, saw how far they could go with this new roster, and got pulled back into reality. SK just, we knew they could play like this. They started playing up to their potential. And that's why this went so fast. Against another team like LG, what Splyce was doing, they might have still lost, but it would have been closer games, longer games, because it's Splyce. But SK was like, no, we know we are right now the better team. R5, with the way that we want to play and our comfortable team composition, is better than yours. We're going to play like it. And they just took it to them straight out. Like I said, they beat the ass.
Yeah, it's not looking good for Splyce if they don't kind of tone it down a little bit and get better at everything. I feel like they just like galaxy brained themselves. I don't know what they were thinking that first game. They kind of toned it down in game 2 and 3, but just weren't on the same page. And I'm interested to see once they get a little bit of time under the belt to acclimate and see what they do. Again, I think this was very unkind to them. Like we said at the top of the show, Smite has become a very much a game where you capitalize on mistakes. You can't really get away with anything. SK very much capitalized on Splyce mistakes, and they get the 3-0. So I think that's where largely the lead comes from, and largely where the set win comes from. But it'll be interesting to watch them as they go forward. And so that's our games today. Looking ahead at tomorrow, we've got Renegades playing again, of course, because they play every day, every Smite day from here on out to make up. We see Dignitas trifecta to start the day off, and then we have SK and Renegades. Dignitas trifecta should be an absolute bloodbath. I'm gonna call it now. Variety is going to fuck Ducky with King Arthur for 3 straight games, and it's gonna be bad, and it's not gonna go well for trifecta. And Dignitas is just gonna roll over trifecta. Dignitas is gonna win every game by 25 minutes. I'm calling it right now. It's gonna be 3 25-minute games max.
I would say by 20. I think that trifecta is going to get their dicks kicked in. It's not going to
Yeah.
look pretty. It's going to be fast. It's going to be precise and calculated. Dignitas is just going to go out
If
there and
you're
play
a
their game. It won't matter
Dignitas
what the
fan,
trap
you're
is.
gonna get the popcorn ready. You're getting ready. You're sitting back. You're gonna pop a beer at 11 a.m. because you're slightly an alcoholic. I don't make this is what I see. And you're gonna watch it, and you're gonna get real into Dignitas. We're gonna see the Dignitas trifecta game end up as Pornhub. Like that's how bad the fucking's gonna be.
It's going to be a Dignitas top 5 greatest hits. Like, this is what you get on your DVR if you still have one of those, or you at least get it on demand. You record it, and you just, you know what? Back in
Absolutely.
my day, this is the Dignitas that I remember, and you just show them
This
destroying.
is the
trifecta.
Michael Jordan highlight film right here. Oh yeah, there's no way trifecta win on this unless Dig troll, unless Dig physically do not show up. Trifecta cannot win this set. It is impossible. I can't see it.
It would have to be worse
So
than when United didn't show up and still reverse swept. They just had to, like, we can't show up at all. You get the 4-0 because
right,
even if they were
exactly.
late, they gave up 2 games. I still think they come back reverse sweeping. Like, okay, well, whatever.
700. So
Let's go home.
we got in the chat. Trifecta needs to win early game. There is no way in hell Dignitas can lose the early game enough to let Trifecta win. There is no scenario where Dignitas doesn't just delay the game enough to like, oh, we can just play now and then beat that ass. Like there's no way. There's no reality apart from them not playing the game that Dignitas lose. Next game of the day, SK Renegades. I'm excited for SK Renegades. SK plays up and kind of plays down to their competition a little bit. Renegades has actually played an SPL set now and won it. And I don't know how to rate them. I don't know if they're good or not. They played a little sloppy, and I think that probably plays into SK's favor. I don't think this is a 3-0 for SK in any stretch. It could be. I believe it'll either be a 3-1 or a 3-2. And I probably favor SK unless Renegades synergy and skill and everything is ahead of schedule. I see SK winning this. I would love to watch Renegades play. And I think they might be able to play a little bit more of their game plan. Trifecta kind of came in, targeted bans. They took away the Kabrakin from Cherio, and they kind of did some things. But I think SK might feel themselves a little bit more, let that through. I expect Renegades to bring a little jank, not as jank as Splyce game 1, but still an enough jank, but effective jank. And I could see Renegades winning 3-2 that way. But SK is just such a strong team.
I think SK 3-2. The jank I'm thinking is maybe another fun baller taking a mage like a Poseidon again. Not anything too crazy as you said. I just think this series we get to see is Renegades really actually a good team coming out their first set, or was it just that they're playing trifecta? Is it that like even if they can take SK to a 3-2, I think it's like, okay, this Renegade team has some promise. That wasn't just them playing a bad team. They actually play well together. The synergy is there. They just need more time. And I think this is more of a test. If they beat SK, that would seriously make me question everything I said about SK today in this show. I'd be like, well, I just hyped you guys up, gave you all this gas, and you lose to Renegades, who only has one set in the SPL. And I I would honestly be a disappointed father in SK if they lost this set. So I'm gonna go 3-2. I just think that a full split's worth basically of gameplay is going to beat guys that just kind of got here. And that's all you can really judge it on this early in Renegade's SPL career right now.
Yeah. I'm excited. I've said that a few times. This is either going to be a really good set worth watching, or it's going to be a stomp, and I'm not sure which way it's going to go. I hope it's a good set, as I always do, but we don't always get that. Game one should be the set number one should be a stomp. I hope game two isn't as well. I like to spend all day watching Smite. It gives me something to do while I work. But I think we're both in agreement here, Dignitas, and I think we're both kind of leaning towards SK. Um, it just kind of makes sense right now, based on the play and everything. Hard to really say anything differently. Let's look ahead a little bit. Let's look at next week. The Thursday matches, because those will happen before we do the show again. We've got Luminosity versus Pittsburgh Knights. Pittsburgh Knights should win this, as much as they've struggled. Luminosity took a game off a dig early and have had time off, but I just don't think Luminosity really has what it takes to go to Pittsburgh Knights. I don't know if I don't know if you have any insider information that would make me believe otherwise, but Pittsburgh Knights should
Ah,
probably win this 3-0 or 3-1. I could see it.
yeah, I could see it 3-1. Mollusk has been great. The LG's like the thing that I've noticed about LG and just it's basically they pull cheese on you, and that gets them their first game. And beyond that, if you're a middle of the pack team, then maybe they can keep pulling some sort of cheese on you. That's not super out of the box, but something you didn't expect, and they play it really, really well because they practice it a lot, and that's how they get their wins. But as soon as that doesn't work, and they have no more cats to let out, all the cats to let out of the bag, then it's like, well, individually we're still better than you. What else do you have to throw at us? And despite Pittsburgh Knights' uh, perceived ceiling cap and inconsistencies at times, they're still, I think, pound for pound better than LG. So unless LG, even this late
Mhm.
in phase one, can pull something that no one's ever seen before that the Knights aren't ready for, I don't see them picking up even a game. I think it's 3-0.
Yeah, the way that LG win this is to make the game take a long time and play an anti-engage, anti-dive comp, like play a Kumbhakarna, play the Jormungandr, things like that, where you're forcing the Pittsburgh Knights to get impatient. That's where the Knights have really lost and struggled this split, is adapting, saying fuck it and going in when the rest of his team is a mile away, and then he just gets blown up. Uh, there's several points where they've done that. I'm interested to see if the Pittsburgh Knights stick to their new strategy of having adapting go to solo lane and apply pressure for Deathwalker. It worked really well their last time out, and it's what he's used to. It's something that we've been calling for. I can't wait to see if they do that again, or if that was like a one time off and they don't respect LG enough to do it. Uh, but again, yeah, LG probably not swinging hard enough to beat the Pittsburgh Knights at this stage. Still got a lot of growing. And then the next match, Dignitas Renegades. We still got a lot to learn about Renegades. At this stage, they make too many mistakes that Dignitas is going to capitalize. Probably a 3-0 or a 3-1 for Dignitas. Again, Dignitas being too much of a better team. If Renegades had been playing, I maybe changed my mind. But they do have rust. They were making mistakes. You can't do that against Dignitas. So Dignitas win this set. And I
Yeah,
imagine you
okay.
have to agree.
Yeah, I agree. Like you hit the nail on the head right there. 3-0, maybe 3-1, but really again it's
Mhm.
just like last week's like And if Dig is trolling, then maybe they take a game off. If not, then you know it's pretty much done.
Yeah. Uh, should be some good games coming up tomorrow and then going into next week. We'll touch on, we'll talk about them again next Thursday, but Rival Luminosity. Okay, maybe not a good game, but Pittsburgh Knights Renegades should be a good game going into next Friday. Excited about that. We're getting in the home stretch. Minor league is really starting to shape up. We're seeing Sanguine really take their next steps, closing the gap between them and Armada. It's a very big gap, but they're slowly closing in. You look at EU still a tight race. Simplicity's really found their stride. There's a lot of storylines going on in that. You look at the SPL. We don't even get to see SSG play for a little bit, and I think it's going to disappoint a lot of people because we want to see, what the changes they got. Adding in Alpha Jackal and then adding in taking away Ven and adding in, Andy Mid and Sino Jungle. There's a lot of change going on in that team, and I think they're just going to be an interesting case to watch and what happens, because you look at SSG already are in their file for their SSG Gold team. Nobody likes it. It's a stream team. They don't deserve the spot. And then now I think SSG Prime, or whatever we're going to refer to them as, is also starting to fall into that criticism. Like, people are figuring out, like, if you're SSG, you can't kick Barra. Barra's been playing well. You can't kick Jeff because Barra and Jeff, the sex tank, you can't get rid of that. And then Andy's, around forever. You can't get rid of him. And so there's just like a lot of they bound their own hands by the way that they kind of built their team. And I don't know, it'll be it's a lot to watch and unfold. There's a lot of question marks moving forward as we, the season kind of reaches its midpoint. And excited for the midseason invitational. All these minor league teams, the console team is going to have a chance to play. But that's it for our show this week. I want to special guest, a special thanks to our new co-host, Mr. Culture here. Knocked it out of his park. Knocked it out. Good Lord, I've been up too long today. I'm tired. He's knocked it out of the park in his first Smite podcast. This is your first Smite podcast, right?
Yeah. I'm just glad I made it. I made it. It's eight. I made it. I hope I didn't sound like too much of a nub. If anyone has any gripes with things I said, I promise you I'm gonna get better as time goes on. Just be patient with me. I swear to you. But thank you for having me on and not kicking me off from minute one. As soon as like, who is this guy? This Culture dude.
Right.
So
it's always good to have a fresh face. When this first started out, I was in your shoes. I literally had just gotten into esports the last year and had only gotten into Smite a couple months into it. Right. I think I was into it I got into it midway through season 3, went to World season 3 because I was in Atlanta anyway. And then I started a show at the start of season 4. So, and I picked 2 guys who knew what they were doing more than I did. And I just I can talk analytics. Like I can see what's going on and comment on it. And had them I leaned on them a lot. And then now, obviously I've been doing this for, 2 years now. And, it's good to come back and, give some fresh blood a chance and, know that you didn't ruin it and was good. So I don't have to kick you off the show. It's not just a one-off. Culture's here to stay, everybody. So you can follow me at Zach LHS _ rebranded from the Zach Dick. Just wasn't feeling it. It's not family friendly. Just had to go back. And you know me, I'm very oriented about being family friendly here. And then you can follow Culture at ATL Esports Guy. Give him a follow. I'm sure we'll be doing a lot of communicating over on Twitter back and forth now. And then this will be up on YouTube. I'm working on interviews. I'm talking to Barra. I'm talking to Dignitas as a team. I've got Taco and Aggro kind of lined up as well. So those should be coming out as well. Maybe we'll get Culture here to do an interview or two. We don't. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if we give him the reins, the keys of the castle. But for everybody
Oh,
here
will I
at
level up?
UGC, what was that?
That's what I was going to say. Will I have leveled up by then? Will I have my level 2 initiate and not just be
Right.
level 1?
Yeah. You don't know yet. You're still on probation here. All right. So for everybody here at UGC, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time around the battleground. Bye, everybody.